All right, so much art history and never enough time to cover it all. So let's go run through the art museum. Okay, everybody, we're going to continue in on with we're looking at Russian modernism, and we're going to continue with a style of art called constructivism. And this is a change from an experiment with modernism to practical design. That what we've seen so far are individual artists that are trying to create a utopian type of experience through their art. But now we're going to see artists trying to take this modern Russian art and apply it to a practical purpose. So our first artist right here is Tatlin, and there he is saying hello in Russian. And he goes to visit Picasso in Paris in 1914. And he becomes aware of the recent avant garde development. And so he probably sees Picasso's construction sculpture for the guitar from 1912. And he takes what he sees and he brings it back to Russia, excuse me, and he's creating this object here on the left. And it's called corner construction relief. And I want you to write down that term right there, truth to the materials. And what he's doing is he is studying the materials. He's not trying to make art. This is almost like a scientific study, just like Impressionism was a scientific study on color and light. He is making a scientific study on materials. So it's made with parts found in St. Petersburg Museum at the time. He's focusing on what materials do best. So metal is really good at being curved, so he curves the metal. He's using string and twine and rope, which is really good at tension. So he's pulling them tight to give them tension. And so he's considering the truth of the material. So what I want to explain to you right here is he's using the materials in how they are supposed to be made. He's not turning this metal into something else. He's not turning it's just a piece of metal. For example, Michelangelo's David, what is it made out of? It's made out of marble. That is correct. Does it look like a rock of marble? No, it looks like a man. All right. He has manipulated that marble to look like a person. It doesn't look like a rock. So Totlin is doing the opposite of that. He is letting the materials dictate how they're going to look. You know, what does the material want to be? Did Michelangelo's rock want to look like David? But Michelangelo manipulated the rock into looking like David. He carved it. So he's working with industrial materials, not art supplies. What he's doing is he's studying the materials. He's not trying to make art, and he calls it truth to the materials. And rather than imposing his will on the materials, like carving stone or using paint to create an image, it means that he is letting the materials dictate the form. There are certain things that iron can do and things it cannot do, or steel, or asphalt, or glass, or whatever. So he's focusing on what these materials do best. All right, and here is an exhibit of the Society of Young Artists, and in the upper corner is the upper right hand corner is our next artwork. But if you're looking at these other objects that are in here, these look more like industrial objects than artworks. But they're being true to the materials. They're not trying to impose the artist's wishes on these objects. And they're also showed the way that they're made. A master academic artist of the Renaissance to the 19th century hid how the works were painted. You remember we were looking at paintings where you couldn't find a single brushstroke in them? Like think of that blue satin dress. Like you couldn't find any brushstrokes. I was just at an art museum last Thursday and I was looking at some paintings and I could not find a brushstroke. The artists were totally hiding how they did the paintings. Now, the Impressionists were showing how they did the paintings. They showed all the brushworks. All right, so we're going to take a look at the spatial construction number 12. And basically, what it is a wooden oval. He's taken a wooden oval and then cut it into multiple ovals, put them back together, and then strung them like this. So it's movable, it can collapse, but it's usually displayed as open. This also shows truth to the materials. It's showing what wood can do. Wood has certain properties, and he's using those properties to make this construction. So this becomes a deductive structure, a structure that shows how it's made, a structure that shows you the organization. And this is constructed much like what we have for like a garden decoration like this that blows in the wind. All right, the next one I want to show you is the Monument to the Third International. And I put in this photograph to show you how large this artwork is. Does that look big to you? Like it's really big for an artwork, right? This is just the model for it. It's meant to be much bigger than this, like insanely big. It's meant to be a synthesis of art and technology. And lots of his art, meaning Totland, blended sculpture with architecture. So in this next photograph right here, I want you to look at this scale over here on the right. Here is the Eiffel Tower, and the monument to the Third International was meant to be taller than the Eiffel Tower. It was meant to look something like that. And here we have a computer generated construction to show you what it looks like from different points of view. Now you see the outer part of this sculpture is all framework, but the inner part is solid. That's meant to be an office building on the inside. It's meant to have a square office building with a pyramid office building on top of that, with a cylinder on top of that. He's using iron as a construction materials instead of traditional materials. And this is considered a constructivist structure. It is modern because it's true to the materials. We're looking past the art that is passively looked at to art that can actually do something. It would contain offices used for the party. That means the Communist Party. And it was also used as a radio tower. It was meant to be used as a radio tower. And parts of it were meant to rotate. Check this out. The bottom part would have rotated once a year. The next tier would have rotated once a month. The next tier would have rotated once a week. And then the top tier would have rotated once a day. Can you imagine office buildings doing that? So he had this very optimistic view of what technology could do at this time. I mean, this is 1920. It was an impossible dream to make these office buildings rotate like that. Like, where are you going to put the plumbing? How's the plumbing going to go from the top floor down to the bottom floor if it's rotating at different ways? Rodchenko is our next artist, and he renounced art for art's sake. So this painting by Malevich over here on the right, he would have said, that's no good. We're not doing that kind of stuff on that and like that anymore. He called on artists to stop producing useless things and instead communicate to the masses. Malevich's pureness of form does not serve any purpose anymore. The duty of the artist as a citizen of a community is to help create a new life. And he says that the whole revolution and the Civil War was about sweeping away the past and doing something new and different. We're sweeping away the aristocracy. So what kind of art did the aristocracy like? They liked illusionism. So he's going in a new direction with his art. And the idea of the artist changed from the individual that makes great works, and like Gauguin there on the left, to one of many that are contributing to the revolution, like the Russian artist, I think that's Totland on the right. And notice both of these guys had a very odd choice of clothing. Gauguin would dress very flamboyantly and eccentric. And then Totland right there, he's dressed in like a worker's outfit. He's better suited in his outfit to go into the factory than it is to make art. So we're moving from the individual that makes great works to one of many that are contributing to the revolution. The duty of the artist as a citizen of a community is to help create a new life. So there are three new ways of thinking about the artist. One is the artist is a worker and a laborer. The second is that the artist is not part of the upper class. The artist does not look down on others. And the third is that credit against a single authorship. It must be a collective. What they're saying is that artists are no longer this genius like Michelangelo or Leonardo. That's not the goal of the artist anymore. We are now working together as a team. We're working together towards the collective. And what is that collective? Is to make art for the new Communist Party. So Rodchenko, this is one of his more famous pictures. This is what I want you to know for the test. He's making artworks and posters that promote the communist government, promote communist philosophy. And here she's spreading the message. You can see the red and the black and the white. Now she's calling out. The philosophy of these constructivists is to make art to further the ideals of the revolution. Artists stop making art and just go to work for the party. And they become commercial artists instead of fine artists. These artists are actually a part of the industry itself, or they were not met with much success. Artists were not treated well by the industries. And by the 1930s, it's all over for the suprematists and the constructivists. But my point with these is that these constructivists, their philosophy, what they're trying to do is totally in line with the Communist Party. They are promoting communist ideals through their art, and they're trying to forge a new way of art, just like communism was trying to forge a new way of government. You can see this is like total propaganda for the communist government. All right, and that leads us to social realism. And I want you to know these three guys. It's Lenin, Trotsky, and Stalin. Now, do you guys remember Trotsky from my talk on the Mexican muralist? He came to visit Frida Kahlo and he was assassinated while in Mexico City. It was Stalin that put out a hit on Trotsky because Trotsky spoke up against Stalin. But before that, they were all good friends, right? They were all promoting the same material. So these three guys hate modern art, right? They think that this new Russian art, this new Russian avant-garde, is bad. They don't want to promote it. And what I think is the frustrating thing about this is that these artists are promoting the ideals of the communist philosophy and communist government, but they're being told not to. So the tragedy of the Russian experiment in modern and avant-garde art was that it was an incredibly bubbling force of new forms and creatives. It is in line with the ideals of the Russian Revolution, but then it gets crushed by the authoritarian and totalitarian ideals of that exact same revolution. All right, I got a little bit of history to show you guys. Long story short, these guys are the Streltsy. They were a fearsome group of Russian riflemen from the 1500s to the 1700s. Long story short, this is Peter the Great, and he's trying to modernize Russia and trying to bring Russia out of its backwards age. And these guys didn't like it. So they revolted against Peter the Great. And the revolt was put down, and these guys were executed in the worst way. And so that makes them martyrs, right? They're trying to revolt against the bourgeois and the leaders, the elite leaders. And so we get this painting right here. This is, from the 19th century. It's traditional and it's a historical painting, but it's a history painting. And this is the kind of stuff that the leaders of the new Soviet Union appreciate. So Stalin hates modern art most of all. After Lenin dies, he becomes a harsh, tyrannical ruler. Anybody that dissents in any way gets killed or sent to the gulags. People like intellectuals, writers, and artists too. This is a total liquidation of the avant-garde between 1932 and 1933. In 1934, the doctrine of social realism prohibits abstract art and design under the rule of Joseph Stalin. And the Communist Party abolishes and outlaws all independent artist groups. It establishes a centralized union of Soviet artists. And Stalin says, if the artist is going to depict life correctly, he cannot fail to observe and point out what is leading towards socialism. So this will be socialist art. It will be socialist realism, is what he says. Social realism looks real, and the content is going to be very socialist. It's going to promote the Communist Party. It is now dangerous to do anything experimental, anything unique, anything that's modern or modernist is dangerous to do. After Stalin's rise to power in the 1920s, avant-garde was considered unproductive to the communist state, and it became dangerous to produce any art outside of socialist realism. And I find that so ironic that the very art that was promoting you the most is the art that you're crushing. But what we get is stuff like this. This social realism has four different kind of, I guess, rules. And the first one is Classavost. And I want you to write that down. Classavost is the rule that artists should show class consciousness, like showing the working class as heroic. Does this look heroic to you? These guys are struggling in the factory, building stuff for the betterment of society. That's heroic, right? Art should be for the workers and easy for them to understand. It's not meant to show creativity or individual expression. And they are romanticizing the working class. And it's meant to inspire and educate the masses. The second sort of rule of social realism is typishnost. And this is the rule that portraits and figure painting should depict typical characters and typical circumstances as heroes. So if you look at this painting, who is that in the picture? It's Lenin. Where is he? He's sitting on a chair, right? Is it a grand chair? Is it a throne? Right? Look at the room that he's in. Is this expensive furniture? It's not. It's very basic. And they're showing him in a humble setting. They're showing their heroes in a humble setting. They're romanticizing their leaders. Because remember what communism wants. Everybody's the same. Everybody gets equal stuff. There are no kings that get rich stuff, and then poor people that get the crap. Everybody just gets crap now, right? And so they're showing that he is not pretending to be better than everybody else. But this is propaganda, right? It's a lie. I was talking to third period, and I was describing how this looks like a bachelor pad, right? When guys first move out, they don't care about nice furniture. They just get the basic stuff. All right, the third sort of rule for social realism is partitnost. And this says that the artist should confirm that the Communist Party had the leading role in all aspects of Soviet life. All right, look at this painting. Who's the celebrity in this painting? That's Lenin, right? Where do you think Lenin actually lives or actually lived? Do you think he lived here in a small town, a little village? Where do you think he actually lived? City. And what city do you think he lived in? Moscow, right? It's most likely, and I don't know the answer to that, but I would bet $100 that Lenin lived in Moscow. What this is showing you is that Lenin is humble. He comes out to actually talk to us and to listen to us. So he's no better than us. If he was a king, he would have just driven on by and ignored all of us. But he takes the time to come and sit and listen to us, right? And then even the children are interested, and the dog is interested in what's going on, right? This is propaganda. The point of this painting is that the Communist Party is also in charge of not just the city in Moscow, but also way out in the rural areas in the farmland. He's spreading his leadership out there as well. But these paintings should be promoting the Communist Party and making Lenin look heroic. They highlight the superiority of the Soviet system, and art is now only valuable if it serves a social purpose, and that purpose was to promote the Soviet state. But just look at how different this is. But they're both promoting the same thing. They're both pro-communist. Make the red wedge conquer the white army. That's so pro-communist. But if somebody were to paint like that, they get arrested or executed. Another rule that they would have in the social realism in the Soviet Union was that everybody pictured must have a healthy body, they must have an intelligent face, and a friendly smile. And who do you see in there but Stalin? Right? This guy's a monster. Hitler was a monster. He killed 6 million Jews. But Stalin killed 10 million of his own people. All right, this guy's an absolute monster. But look at this painting. Look how nice he looks. Look at what a beautiful day it is, and the children are so happy to hang out with them. All right, another sort of rule is narodnost. And this is the rule that artists should show people, quote unquote, people, or the nation, quote unquote, nation, in the dignity of their everyday lives. So they're presenting images of optimism. Look how happy this looks, right? You have the whole community come together. Everybody's brought something to eat. We're going to have a great time. It's going to be great food. And what a beautiful day it is. And everybody's so healthy looking and smiling. So everything is dignified. Everybody is cared for and provided for. That's what the message that these paintings were supposed to show. But this is a lie. It's an illusion. The reality of the Soviet state was very different. All right, I told you about the 10 million people that died. Most of them died through famine. So, long story short, the Soviet collectivization of farms led to the starvation of millions. And also, Stalin purges his own party. Anybody that has any kind of dissent gets executed or sent to the gulags. So things are very bad for the citizens of Russia during these times when all the artwork is showing how happy we are and how wonderful it is. All right, I've got this painting to show you. I was listening to a Russian art historian talk about this painting, and he was talking about this woman on the cart and the style of dress that she's in. Do you notice that she's dressed very differently than the others? So she's from the city, and she has a case in her lap. She has a backpack, and backpacks are very rare at this time. So she's likely a recent graduate, and she's on her way to begin her new job as either a teacher or a doctor. Here's how you got free education in the USSR. You get college for free, but then after you graduate, you have to go where the government tells you to go. You don't have a choice. You can't pick and choose what job you have. And the people that are close to the government get the best jobs. Like we have total nepotism going on in the Soviet Union at this time. That she's been, because she doesn't have a close tie to the government, she's been sent far, far away to go and be either a teacher or a doctor in a small village. But look what she's riding on. This is 1956 when this is painted. And in the 70s, the farmers are still working with horse-drawn carts to get their work done. And even in the 2000s, in Russia, people are still using horse-drawn carts on a massive scale. Russia is very far behind the times, and they have been. But also in the 1950s, we have Sputnik. Russia beat the Americans at the space race to get a satellite up into space, but still their people travel on carts. That's not even a nice carriage. All right, I'm going to finish today by returning to Kazimir Malevich. And this is the artist that painted Black Square and that painted white on white. And he was trying to create art that was reduced and reduced and reduced. He was trying to get that to that 0 degree. And that was what, the 1915, 1917? But here in 1930, this is what he's painting. Why do you think that is? We go from painting white, a square on a white background, to painting like this and this. Why is he painting like that? Yeah, it's the Soviet Union. He's not allowed to paint avant-garde, right? So either he stops painting or he paints what the government tells him to paint or wants him to paint, or he paints his own stuff and gets executed. But on his deathbed, he asked that he be buried underneath his black square. All right. So that'll finish us for the Russian experiment in art. Does anybody have any questions? Any comments? All right.